Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my 5 favorite Victorian novels. Really it's 4 favorite Victorian novels and a poem. So anyways, if you are new to my channel and you love literature, you love discussing literature, or you just happen to find yourself enjoying this video, I would encourage you to subscribe, to like the video, and to stick around. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. The order of events. I am going to go through my five books. Then at the end, I am going to have some concluding thoughts about myself and Victorian literature. I'm going to be starting at the bottom of my favorites and working my way up. So at the bottom, and I'm actually going to scoot over because I read this digitally, but it is Black Beauty by Anne Sewell. I always say Sewell, but I think I'm saying that incorrectly. We're going to move on swiftly from that. Black Beauty is the story of a horse living in Victorian times, and it is truly about the way that we treat creatures, non-human creatures, living things, particularly horses, and the fate of a lot of horses during that time period. And it reveals a lot. And I know I've shared this story before, but in case some of you haven't heard it, I conceived of myself as somebody who would not be a very good pet owner. Not because I'm cruel to animals or anything like that, and or anything like that. However, the way that Black Beauty, our narrator in the book, because it's talking about the way animals are treated from the perspective of a horse. And so as Black Beauty was speaking and talking about some of his best owners and the way that those owners treated him, it dawned on me that I would actually be a great pet owner because I have a lot of love for the creatures around me. And shortly after, I got my miniature schnauzer, Harry, who I love so much. And it was really that book that opened my eyes as to like what a great pet owner I would be because of the love and care that I would and have given my sweet little pup. So clearly that book made the impact on me and was really the transformative moment for me to start looking for and desiring a sweet little pup. Next up is a poem that I read, and it is Christina Rossetti's Goblin Market. I first read this in undergraduate school in an English literature class, and I know that in the discussion somebody said that the poem is begging to be read aloud. I hadn't thought about the poem in that way until somebody had brought it up in a discussion, which is why class discussions are often so lovely, especially when they're done well. At that point, my professor was really excited about that idea. He was a very excitable professor, and he began reading the poem aloud. And maybe the student himself may have even started reading the poem aloud, bits of it. It does indeed have this incredible way that language feels in the mouth. It was the first time that I really thought about language and the way that language feels, the feeling of language in our own mouths in a lot of ways, and how some language and some poetry, and actually a lot of children's books, the way that they're spoken when you read them aloud, and the way the words work together, and how some of them have a rhyme and a rhythm, but it's not just the rhyme and rhythm. Sometimes it's just the way that your mouth forms while saying the words. Anyways, that is a tangent. Goblin Market, which I should probably have scooted to the side at the beginning so that there's plenty of space for Goblin Market. Goblin Market, I reread 2 years ago during Victober. I had read a whole bunch of Christina Rossetti's poems, and what I loved about it was that it was clearly one of her, if not her best work, Rossetti's best work. It's so good. It has an intensity and a fairy tale-like quality to it, and a rhythm, and it's just everything about it is fantastic. And even upon the reread, it did not let me down. I really, really loved it, and I would like to revisit it again. So maybe that's something I'll have to look forward to in the next couple of weeks as Victober comes to a close. Next up is the book that is probably considered the Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice for the Victorian period, and that is Elizabeth Gaskell's North and South. And I really love this book. It is a story about class and love and social situations and about a young lady, I can't remember her name, Margaret Hale, that's right, Margaret Hale, and the relationship that she has with her parents and finding love, the political situation during the time. It's just a fantastic book. And I would actually highly recommend this to fans of Pride and Prejudice if you're looking for something that gives a similar vibe and is of a very, like, it was written really on the heels of Pride and Prejudice. And so if you're really kind of looking for that, a similar kind of flavor, I would actually recommend this to you because it has that love and intensity and commentary about class and odd not sibling, but father-daughter, mother-daughter, parent-child relationships throughout. And it's just a fantastic read. Next up, climbing up the ladder one notch, I read this a long time ago, and I'm due for a reread, and it is Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. This was the book that changed my mind about classics. I don't know for sure. I just hadn't read classics as an enjoyment. I hadn't really picked up classics for my own enjoyment in my adulthood until I finally picked up Jane Eyre. And it changed the way that I conceived of myself as a reader, myself with classics. And it is a fantastic story. Jane Eyre has a very hard and difficult childhood, and this has spooky vibes here, there, and everywhere. Hither and whither, I don't remember, but it has spooky vibes here, there, and everywhere. It is all about atmosphere and characters. So since reading this, I've actually heard a lot of critiques about Jane Eyre and the love interest in this book, Mr. Rochester, but at the time, I didn't care. I was so swept away by the love story, and I was just half in love with Mr. Rochester myself, and I thought he was fantastic, and it has a very off the rails kind of ending, and I really related with Jane Eyre myself. And I think that perhaps on a reread, I would be a little more critical of our leading man, just as the woman that I am. I sit before you now. However, the 20-year-old Shelley, or the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed young Shelley who read this at the time, I was just like mesmerized by him, and I thought it was the grandest love story of all time, and I was so enamored by it, and those feelings clearly stay with me today. And it wasn't just about their love story, but it was about Jane's strength of character and the fact that she really stuck to what she believed was right and wanted to do what was right, both for herself and for others. And there was something about the strength and quietness of her character that I really responded to. And I think that I very much identified with at the time. And I walked away feeling like Jane Eyre was not only the greatest book written of all time, but also that Jane Eyre herself was the best character I'd ever read. And that feeling, it stayed with me and it's stuck, So I just enjoyed this book. I enjoyed it. I really need to reread it. though I'm kind of scared that I might have changed feelings on a reread, but I loved it. I loved it so much. Finally, probably to no surprise to anyone who are any regular viewers of this channel, those who know me, my favorite Victorian novel is Middlemarch by George Eliot. This just was amazing. George Eliot has a very well developed voice for her narrator. Her narrator has an opinion and a certain the way she oversees the whole story and the way she inserts herself in some of the scenes. I loved it. I loved it. She has a very circuitous type of writing, especially for her narrator, in the way that she's explaining the story, or telling. She's not explaining the story, she's telling the story for sure. So anyways, this is basically about the town of Middlemarch and the characters in it and their struggles, and my goodness gracious, there is something about George Eliot's characters that are so humanizing. She has a way of understanding the struggle of humanity, the things that everybody struggles with, and the complexities of ourselves. And she is able to write that into her characters. And so all of her characters have flaws and make choices and have struggles that I could 100% identify with. Even if it wasn't the same way that I struggled with things, it was the same ideas, the same concepts. And it really hit home. It's a sprawling, epic, intense, long, chunky thing. I just loved it. I loved it so much. And Dorothea, the main character in this book, there was a scene in this book that touched me so deeply that, and it's not a sad scene. And I think when I speak about this novel, I think people think it's like emotionally wrenching. It's not. I just connected with something that I held within myself for a really long time, and that I think that I knew about myself, and that I don't know if I was avoiding it, but the way that George Eliot wrote something about Dorothea, and about decisions and having to live with certain decisions that you've made, it unlocked something in me when I was relating the scene to my husband, and it just broke me wide open. I sobbed. It was like a therapy moment for me. I cried tears of sadness, I cried tears of joy, and it just meant so much to me, partly because it gave me language about complex feelings for a lot of things, and it made me feel just, I don't know, less alone. I was like, George Eliot, you must get me. You must get me, because I just was broken wide open by a couple of the scenes in this book. And for that, I mean, I think Dorothea is just like the greatest character of all time. I know some people have very mixed feelings, but I don't want to hear it. Dorothea for the win forever. I love her so much. And to my dying day, I will remember those scenes that touched me so deeply. Wow, okay, so we got kind of deep there in the end. So let me just overall talk about my feelings about Victorian literature. I have not read nearly as much literature as some folks here on the internet or in our little corner of BookTube, as we so lovingly say. And I know that comparison is the thief of joy. So I'm not comparing myself in any way to them. However, I'm going to say a statement, and I know that I have not read that much Victorian literature, but coming up with 5 favorite Victorian novels wasn't super easy for me. I really had to think and rack my brain about it, because I haven't read that much Victorian literature. And I think BookTube has exposed, my hair is bothering me, BookTube has exposed me as to the breadth of Victorian literature out there. And I am just very aware, I'm like pointedly aware at all of the literature that I have not read yet. And then also, having said that, I was going through my list, and it's like some books, the ones that I have mentioned, knocked it out of the park for me. I felt so seen. I connected with the literature so deeply. I loved it so much. And then there were books that I just could care less about. In that same class that I read that Rossetti poem, I also read Wuthering Heights. And Wuthering Heights is not on this list because I remember literally nothing about that book. I feel like that is terrible because I know it's supposed to be like amazing, like Cuckoo's Bananas Crazy, amazing, off the rails, toxic love story, craziness. Like, that's what I know about the book. And I cannot remember a single thing about it. I've also read The Canterbury Ghost, which I liked but didn't love. I've read a good chunk, like a chunk of other things, and I couldn't, in all honesty, put them on the list because I felt like it would just be weighing the list down. Like, it would be like not my favorites, you know? I would be making it less than what it should be because, you know, it would not be like the creme de la creme. I would be weighing it down with the crust, you know. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. And